Should we avoid to see the image that show violence, cruelty and killing of farmed animals? Avoid to see this image. Yeah, many people they don't want to look.
Oh, I see.
They find reasons to avoid.
Yeah.
Should we look? Should we avoid?
Well, I mean, you know, you ask whether we should look or not to the image showing the suffering of animals. Well, I don't think people ask that question themselves. Should I look or not? Basically, they react intuitively. Oh, I don't want to look at that. So there are two reasons, main reasons. One, they simply don't want to know because it's an inconvenient truth. And so they think, oh, this is disgusting image, all these terrible things happening, I don't want to see about that. And so in a way, because they know inside that if they were to see the kind of magnitude of suffering that we inflict on, you know, incredible numbers of animals. Let's not forget that every hour we kill 120 million animals every hour for our so-called needs, which are not real needs. So that's an easy way to maintain a statu quo and a consensus. It's okay to go on like that. There are other people who they said, I love animals, but I can't look at that because it's too much. So then they fall into some kind of empathic distress. I mean, this is not a good argument because they should look and do something. So fortunately now, thanks to, you know, the internet, movie like Earthlings, and there are many, you know, people who film secretly within slaughterhouse and who expose the incredible suffering, torture that we inflict to those animals, and thinking that this is normal, this is what we have to do, unfortunately, to produce meat, so this is like that. So now those images are getting more and more, you know, available, and so there are more and more, public opinion is changing. I think in France, 80% of people think that we should reduce the suffering in the slaughterhouse. Only very few think that we should close them altogether, but somehow there is a much increased awareness about the intolerable suffering. So now some people say, well, there's some exceptions. There are some bad slaughterhouse, there are people who are a little bit sadistic, but even in the best possible condition, I mean, still, it's you know, confining, you know, thousands of animals in a small space, carrying them to the slaughterhouse, knocking them down, and we all know that because of the need for speed and for, you know, reducing the cost, everyone knows. It's not even hardly a secret. Even official reports somehow say that between 10 and 15% of animals are still or are regain consciousness when you start cutting them into pieces. So you cut them piece by piece when they are alive, basically. So this is intolerable. So people keep on saying, you know, this is the exception, this is when it's badly run, it's against the rule, but nevertheless it's happened everywhere all the time. So this is not tolerable. And now people start to see that. So I think this seems to be more awareness and less avoidance to look at that. But of course, in general, people, you know, they don't want to feel that, I don't want to feel I'm a bad person. So if I'm exposed to that and I know that if that happens, it's because I want to eat meat, I want to buy meat, therefore, you know, if there is the consumer, there will be the product. So we know we have our part of responsibility. Without us consumers, then there will not be meat production. So we don't like that, because we don't like to feel we are a bad person. So we prefer to, far from the eyes, far from the heart.
Do we human beings have any superiority, or are we more important so we can inflict pain on them so that we can feed ourselves?
So the question of, you know, are human beings superior? Well, of course they are superior for many things. We are far more intelligent, although consciousness and intelligence is by no means the sole ownership of human beings. We know very well, you know, all the scientists agree that animals do have consciousness, I mean, in different forms, but of course they are aware. And then intelligence, yes, of course, they do plenty of things that require intelligence. And now in terms of skills, we have the skills that we need to survive. So human beings develop an extraordinary intelligence, creativity, art, philosophy, morals, etc. So that kind of superiority in one field, that's a fact. But that doesn't give us the right in no way to use that intelligence to instrumentalize 8 million other species. It doesn't give us any moral right to use our intelligence to actually use the right of the strongest. So just to oppress others. If you are smarter than someone, it doesn't give you the right to abuse that person. So why should we do that for animals? Now, if you want to speak of skills, other animals have skills that we don't have. For instance, if you want to fly from Alaska to New Zealand, flying on the sky like some birds do, migratory birds, they navigate on the stars or they navigate on the polarization of light. We can't do that. No, bats can navigate in the dark with their sonar. We can't do that. But that doesn't give us the right to abuse us and instrumentalize us. So in a nutshell, yes, human beings do have extraordinary capacities on many fields that other species don't have. Some species have some far better capacity than us on some other skills, but that's just a description of the various skills of various species. It doesn't confer any moral authority to oppress others. Anyway, to oppress others, to inflict unnecessary suffering on the sentient beings, nobody can say it's moral. If you say, I'm in favor of justice and morality, most people say yes. So is it moral and just to inflict unnecessary suffering to other sentient beings? Of course the answer is no. So then you would have to prove that it's necessary, but it's not. Because we can live perfectly except a few Eskimos or hunter-gatherers, but that's maybe 0.5% of humanity. We absolutely don't need to consume meat to survive. That's well known. It's bad for everybody. It's bad for the environment. Second cause of greenhouse gas effect emission is the industrial farming. It is bad for animals, of course. 60 billion land animals, 1 trillion, that's 1,000 billion sea animals. No, 1,000 million sea animals per year. So it's just like sea animals every year. So it's bad for the animals, of course. It's bad for poverty because you ship 800 million tons of grains from the South America, Africa to the rich country to produce meat that could feed more than 1 billion people. And in the end, it's not even good for human health. Many studies now have shown, the WHO made a synthesis of all the studies that showed clearly that regular daily meat eating is basically increase your risk of dying within the year. So no, everybody is losing. So you see, there's no argument to claim that it is necessary to do that. So then it is unjust and immoral to inflict unnecessary suffering on other sentient beings. Full stop. Nobody can find a moral argument against that. They can say it's tradition. They can say other animals eat each other. Well, this is a description, not a moral argument. Okay?
And what are the solutions to reduce all this abuse, torture, killing of so many animals who are being used to us, to human beings?
So what is the why? How can we reduce? Well, by I think using our reason on one way, and then our capacity for compassion. Reason, I just explained that everybody is losing. The environment, poverty in the world, animals first victims, and then even human health. So it's no good for anybody. So reasonable answer, why should do something that is bad for everyone? And then compassion is that there's no moral justification to unnecessarily inflict suffering and death on other sentient beings. And we cannot feel comfortable morally if we have some compassion to live at the cost of others' suffering and death. So that's all, that's finished. So then imagine some other beings come from another planet which are smarter than us, more intelligent, and they say, okay, we are the supremely intelligent beings, and our gods told us that you human beings are there for our consumption. And by the way, we like so much the taste of human flesh. So then you will say, oh, are you crazy or not? No. This is like that. So we are going to use our strength, our power, our intelligence to basically use you as we want and eat you as whenever we like and decide when, how, and where you will die. So that's what we do with animals. So if someone else was doing that to us, everybody will cry, think it's absolutely outrageous. So just think a little bit.
And what made you become a vegan?
Well, I'm a vegetarian in the East, because if you go to some areas of Tibet and others, I think there is no suffering, a little bit, but taking the milk of the animals. But in the West, I'm strict vegan. So I'm vegan in the West because most of the production of milk, although the chicken eat a lot of insects, but that's life. But now it's a hell for chickens. There are 100,000 chickens kept by 10 people or 20 people. When there's a sickness, they cannot care for individual chickens, so they kill everybody and start over again. So it's just like purely merciless exploitation of these poor animals, and it's a hell. So I don't want to be part of that. So that's why I'm vegan, very simple. I don't want my body to be the graveyard of all those suffering animals. Not only the death, but so much suffering. They just keep them alive barely the time they need to grow the meat and kill them. They become sausage machines or egg producer, no more animal. But they are not machines. I mean, the producers would prefer if they were machines, but they are not machines. They are sentient beings. So this doesn't work. This is indefense. You cannot defend that for any moral ground. Full stop. You can only make some acrobatic intellectual thing, cognitive dissonance, try to not to see, or stupid arguments. There's no logic at all. And philosophers who say it's okay to eat meat, they should better revise their classes of logic, because the logic doesn't work at all and the morality doesn't work. So now I think it's a change of culture. We made progress in civilization. We abolished torture. We abolished slavery, and or at least officially at an international convention. So now I think the next step is to extend that sort of understanding to other species. Also, they have the right to live their full life, not to suffer, and we are nobody to declare that we are the master of the universe and everything belongs to us and we can do anything we want with any of those 8 million species. That is absolutely ridiculous.
This was to inspire people to think about them and to avoid ways, anyway, to do some words to inspire.
But anyway, I think in the essence, you can have all this argument, but in the end it's about compassion. It's about compassion, If you have a little bit of benevolence, wishing that others may be safe, happy, and live their full life, you can start imagining people who are dear to you, and also some animals that you treat very well. Your own dogs, and you will do so much care to some animals that you care for. So why stop there? Compassion should have no barriers. Compassion should have no frontiers. Why should you be so kind with your dog and where cows eat pigs? Doesn't make any sense. So let's make sense. Let's have reason and compassion. And with that, it's very easy to solve that issue. The logic tells you what to do. Compassion motivates you to stop doing that unnecessary suffering. And we have the potential for compassion. So let's apply it. Why stop to just, those who are dear to us? Let's extend the circle of our compassion to all sentient beings. It's not difficult, and we can live very well without inflicting suffering. So let's go for it.